William Baillie was a lieutenant colonel in the East India Company's service. He was captured by Hyder Ali in 1780 at the Battle of Pollilur, and died in captivity in Seringapatam. Records in the India Office show that he entered the army of the East India Company on 18 October 1759 as a lieutenant in the infantry at Madras, and that the dates of his subsequent commissions were as follows: brevet-captain the 5th of September 1763, substantive captain the 2nd of April 1764, major the 12th of April 1772, lieutenant colonel the 29th of December 1775. The historian Wilks identifies him with the Captain Baillie, who did good service as commandant of one of the 3 English battalions in the pay of the company, employed under Colonel Joseph Smith in the operations against Hyder Ali in 1767–8. He was in command at Pondicherry during the destruction of the French works there in 1779, and in 1780 was at the head of a detached force, consisting of 2 companies of European infantry, 2 batteries of artillery, and 5 battalions of native infantry in the northern Circars, when Hyder Ali, with an army of 100,000 fighting men, swooped down on the Carnatic by way of the Changama Pass in July of that year. Baillie was ordered to unite his force with the army collecting near Madras under command of Lord Macleod, who was immediately afterwards succeeded by Sir Hector Munro, moving down with the gigantic camp following then customary and, as some writers assert, with many needless delays. Baillie drew near to Madras, defeating a division of the enemy under Hyder's son Tipu Sultan, which attacked him on the march near the village of Perambaucum. Thence he sent on word to Munro, who was encamped at Conjevrium, 14 miles distant, that his losses prevented his further movement. Munro appears to have feared having his stores exposed at Conjevrium, and, instead of bringing the help which Baillie expected, merely sent a small reinforcement of Highlanders and sepoys under Colonel Fletcher. Indeed, a want of judgment and energy seems to have pervaded the measures of both commanders, the result being that Baillie, moving forward from Pollilur in the direction of Conjevrium on the morning of the 10th of September 1780, found himself assailed by Hyder Ali's entire host. In the engagement which ensued, the blowing up of 2 tumbrils within the oblong into which Baillie had formed his troops, followed by a general stampede of camp followers through his ranks, produced irretrievable confusion. Despite the heroic efforts of their officers, the sepoys, panic-stricken, could not be rallied, but the Europeans, to the number of 500, got together in square under Colonel Baillie, who was on foot, and, taking post on a rising bank of sand, fought with a stubborn determination never surpassed. Again and again they withstood the fierce charges of fresh bodies of Hyder's horse, supported by masses of infantry in the intervals, until all the officers lay killed or wounded, and but 16 soldiers out of the 500 of all ranks in the square remained unhurt. The survivors, including such of the wounded as were thought worth removal, were swept from the field as prisoners, and carried off to Seringapatam. Among the number grievously wounded was Colonel Baillie, whose personal courage in the fight and in the subsequent captivity was admitted alike by friends and foes. In dungeons at Seringapatam, and most of the time in chains, the prisoners remained until 1784, when the survivors were returned to Madras. A few among them, like Captain David Baird, 73rd Highlanders, afterwards General Sir Baird, witnessed the day of retribution long deferred, when the fortress fell to British arms on the 4th of May 1799, but Colonel Baillie was not of the number, death having ended his sufferings in captivity on the 13th of November 1782, 35 years after Colonel Baillie's death, and 17 years after the fall of Tipu Sultan. Lt. Colonel John Baillie, who was his nephew, and served as the British resident in the court of the Nawab of Oudh, Lucknow, commissioned a memorial for Captain Baillie. It is located next to the Gumbaz, where Tipu Sultan is buried. It is an austere, but poignant and pretty structure.